5 parts of a game: the framework of goals, space, components, rules, and mechanics. In this lesson, you'll be teaching students about the 5 parts of a game and go through a group activity where you modify a physical game together to understand each part. First off, before explaining each element, I like to ask the students to try and tell me what they think each element is. It just provides a nice little mind exercise for the students. To go through each part, so the goal, this is what the player is trying to do to win the game. For example, in basketball, the goal is to score more points than the opposing team. The space is where the game is taking place, whether physically or digitally. In basketball, the space happens to be on the basketball court, which has all the boundaries and lines. Components are the parts and objects that are used in the game. In the case of basketball, the components includes things like the player, the basketball hoop, and a basketball. Rules are what you can and cannot do in a game. Once again, in basketball, the player must dribble the ball anytime they want to move, or the player, they can't push, pull, or otherwise foul another player. And mechanics is usually the most difficult one to explain. It's what the player is actually doing in a game. Sometimes games only have one mechanic. Sometimes they have multiple mechanics. In basketball, some of your mechanics include shooting, dribbling, and passing the basketball. So these are the 5 parts of a game. Next, what I recommend doing is a fun kind of class activity you can do with everybody. You want to take a game that everyone's likely going to be familiar with. I usually use rock, paper, scissors. Ask for 2 volunteers, in this case, to come up and demonstrate a round of rock, paper, scissors. Next, what you'll want to do is go through each part of a game individually and ask for examples of how they can modify rock, paper, scissors with each part to make it a little more interesting. So to start with, if you were to use goal, an example after asking the class might be that the goal is no longer to try and win rock, paper, scissors. The goal is to try and lose. Have the 2 volunteers play around with that and, kind of demonstrate how that changes the dynamic. Next is space. For rock, paper, scissors, the space is, where the 2 players are standing in front of each other, facing each other. And if we wanted to modify that, some examples might be, the students now have to turn away from each other or stand on opposite sides of the room. And then play another round and include the previous rule change as well, or part change, just because it makes it a little more interesting, and you'll get to see how compounding a lot of these changes really changes the game. The next one is components. So in the case of rock, paper, scissors, your components are like your hands, the players. They're making the scissors, they're making the paper, they're making the rock. A lot of modifications, you'll see people adding things like the bear, the hunter, the princess, and things like that. Ask the class for some ideas and incorporate them into the game, and have the volunteers play some more rounds. At this point, if you haven't already, you might start seeing, you might come across scenarios where there might be like a tie, or a scenario where nobody knows what to do because nobody accounted for it. These are great learning moments to explain to the students that, these changes that you're making to the fundamental game are going to introduce all sorts of challenges that you might not have thought of before, and they all have to be accounted for somehow. The last one's, not the last one, but the next one is rules. You can change the rules of rock, paper, scissors pretty easily. Like, you have to do it on 3 instead of doing it, 1, 2, 3. Maybe you have to do it on 1, or maybe you have to do it blindfold. And then mechanics. So in mechanics, you're doing the 1, 2, 3 shoot, right? This one's a little tougher to do rock, paper, scissors. Maybe what you're asking them to do is draw. They have to draw the object that they want to play, or maybe they have to mimic it in real life, like mimic a rock with their body instead of just their hands. This activity is a pretty good one to do as a group. It's also something you can ask students to break up into groups and do, maybe with a game they want to do on their own. Physical games usually work pretty well for quick ones, since you can't really just easily change a digital game and just see how the effects change it on the fly. But hopefully this gives you a great idea of the 5 parts of a game.